That's one of the reasons why I love flipping, because the fight they put up and how hard it is to get them out of that cover in that fight. When you hook that big old bass with braid and pull it up out of that cover, nothing in the world like it. Because whenever you're fishing with straight braid and a heavy rod, you feel the full force of that fish when you hook it up close to the boat. You know, normally say if you got monofilament on or fluorocarbon, you hook that fish way out there and then you pull it up next to the boat. By the time you got next to the boat, it ain't green anymore. You hook you an 8-pounder and some cover right next to the boat, that fish is green and he's excited and it's fun. Oh shit! Oh my god!
Monster.
Oh my god!
It's a monster.
Oh my god! What's up, guys? Today I'm going to show you how to do some pitching, flipping, punching, whatever you want to call it. But primarily what we're going to be doing is getting close to cover, using a heavy weight, and punching down in this thick stuff that you see out here. I've been waiting a long time to make this video, and this is the best time of the year, my favorite time of the year to do some pitching or flipping, because in the middle of the day it gets hot. Those bass either go to one or two places. They go out to deep water, or either they come up in shallow water, and not necessarily always shallow. There might be deep water that has cover that they'll hide under, but somewhere to get out of the sun in the shade. Those big bass hide in the cover, and you drop this big weight with a creature bait or some kind of crawdad bait on there, a big bulky bait, he's gonna suck it up. And it's so much fun when you hook them with that braid and you yank them out of there. Let me show you guys my setup real quick though. I've got a 5/0 flipping hook on here, and this is just a little missile bait, and this is 1.5 ounce tungsten. So one thing I want to point out to you guys, I like to put some kind of bait attractant on my bait when I'm flipping. Not really for the smell, because you grease it down and it slides down through that cover better. So go ahead and put some old bang sauce on here. Whenever you're flipping with a big weight, you always want to tie a snail knot, and you go through the front of the hook, not the back. And what that's going to do is it makes the bait sit like this. So when you set the hook, that hook is going to go up into the fish's mouth. If you tie a regular hook, more than likely when you set the hook, that weight is going to open the fish's mouth, the hook's going to come through it, and it's going to completely miss the hook set. Now if you're using a smaller weight like a 1/4 ounce or even a 1/2, if you have a wide gap hook, you can get away with just tying a Palomar knot. But if you're using a straight flipping hook and a big weight, you want to tie a snail knot. One advantage to a straight flipping hook though is that it has no bend on it. So it doesn't have a bend in the shank, and it will slip right down in that cover a lot better than, let's say, a wide gap hook or something that's got that bend right under the eyelet and the shank. So guys, you can flip two different kind of ways. You can just ease up on the cover, like say if you got a big grass mat or something, you can just ease up to it really quietly, let the wind blow you into it, and then just sit on it for a while and flip that whole area, and then once you get done, move on to the next area. Or you can keep that trolling motor running. But what I'm going to be doing today is steadily moving on the trolling motor and just picking out those good spots, the spots that look the best, like they would have a big bass in them, flipping those spots, pump it a few times, maybe jiggle it around, then move to the next spot until I find the fish, because the bass are really scattered out in here. It's not like there's one big mat that's just holding a whole bunch of bass. This right here looks like an ideal spot for a big bass to be at. You got some shade, you got some vegetation. Oh, what the f was that? Had to be an alligator. But that spot back there looked really good, and I went through there, I flipped it, I hit the main spots, and then I moved on. Even though it looked really good, doesn't mean that there's a fish in there, and if he is, it doesn't mean he's gonna bite. So with this bait right here though, you drop this thing down in there on his head, most of the time that big bass is gonna hit it right on the fall or the first or second pump. If he doesn't hit it then, you can throw back in that spot 20 times and still not catch that fish. So I don't like wasting a whole lot of time just because the spot looks good. Hit the spots, move on to the next spot until you find where that big girl's hiding at. When you're flipping, you want to make the most quiet presentation you can possible with the boat, with getting up on the spot, with just being quiet, with the bait hitting the water. You want to get close enough to the spot that you can sneak up there quietly, pitch that bait out, and make that bait hit the water with as least noise as possible. Now, the bigger weight you use, the harder it's going to be to do that. That's why I like going with the smallest weight that I can get away with. But once again, it depends on how thick the cover is you're flipping. But I went back and watched videos of all the flipping I've ever done, and most of the time, I'd say 95% of the fish I catch when I am flipping, it's whenever I make that bait hit the water and it's almost soundless hitting the water. And I don't know why the bass like that. I guess whenever it hits the water, makes a bunch of noise, you know, it doesn't sound natural. But whenever that thing just slips right in there on top of their head, something about it, they can't stand it and they grab it. Sometimes when I'm flipping, the fish want a fast presentation. They want that bait to dart down in there. They want you to pull it up real fast. And sometimes they want a real slow presentation. So whenever it's sinking, I'll keep my thumb on the spool and let it sink slowly. And then I'll pull it back up slowly and keep my line tight and then slowly let it fall back down. You just got to figure out the pattern and what they want that day. And I've went 2 different days, one day after another day, and then want it a completely different way. So you really can't just tell besides experimenting and finding out what they want that day. Let's say, guys, you flip your bait in a spot, it punches down through that cover, it hits the bottom. As soon as it hits the bottom, you need to click that reel over. Because if you got that reel free spooled and a fish grabs it, you're going to have your thumb on the reel trying to set the hook. And you might just backlash, you might lose the fish. You always want to click the reel over as soon as that thing hits the bottom. I've learned from trial and error and from mistake, I've lost some big fish like that.
Oh, that's a fish, guys.
Don't get hung in a tree now.
I'm trying to pitch up under there. That's a hard hit there.
Yeah, you let it sink. Just let that thing. Oh, that's a fish. Oh, I see him on there. Come off of there. That's a fish. Got another one with a fluke. Just like the last one. I seen him swirl, so threw the fluke at him and he hit it. Whenever I am flipping, I always like to keep some kind of bait right next to me ready to go in case I see a bass come up on top of the water. Some kind of reaction bait. Normally it'd be like a rattle trap or a spinner bait. But lately with it being so hot, they want something like a Cinco or a fluke, something weightless that you can dart real quick. And that's working. So let's go over the different techniques for pitching, flipping, or punching, whichever you prefer to call it. So the old school way, you do this here. Get your line, you have some slack in your line. You know, some people pull out some extra line and you find your spot you want to get in and you just kind of hover over it. This is more for close range flipping. This is sneaking up on the spot, getting really close to it, really quiet, and then you just kind of let go of your line and dip that bait in the water. Let it hit the bottom. Pull it out. Do it again. Dip that bait in there and just, that's what they do. They just move from one spot to the next spot to the next spot. So then you've got, which is more common nowadays, you've got pitching, which generally includes a roll cast. They'll roll the rod and kind of cast it where it's level to the water, and then it makes a silent presentation when it hits. Yeah, this technique, I do this a lot right here. You'll see me do this. So I'll let the weight fall about to my reel, and then I'll just kind of toss it, and then about halfway through the swing, I'll let go of the free spool, let it kind of go out there, but I'll thumb the spool. That way I can put my thumb back on that spool right before it hits the water to make a more silent presentation. If you're pitching it, I like to keep my free spool loose. That way, whenever that bait's falling, I can just free spool it and let it fall. You can keep it tight. Keep it tight, especially if you got a heavy weight, but then you got to pull line out as that bait's falling. I like to mostly pitch, so kind of pitch and then get it close to the water, and then I'll put my thumb on the free spool right before it hits the water, cause a little bit of friction, so that way that thing hits that water and enters through that mat and vegetation with a silent presentation. Ooh. Oh, dude. Oh, my God. Oh, dude. Oh, come on over here, son. What the heck? More noise you make normally whenever you're flipping. You know, these big bass got big because they're smart. They're not stupid. And you're flipping, you gotta have that mindset that you're going for a big bite. You know, some places, unless it's just like somewhere in South Florida and you just got tons of bass that are, you know, in the cover, but like a place like this, I might flip all day and only get 1 or 2 bites. But normally when I do, it's a 5+. So you just gotta have, if you're gonna go flipping like that, especially if you're using a bigger creature bait, like the missile bait, and a big weight, you just gotta have the mindset that you're going for a big fish. And I mean, I've flipped for 4, 5, 6 hours all day sometimes, and not even got a bite. Now guys, what I like to do whenever I'm pitching, let's say I see a pocket, I want to get my bait back up in there. I'll pitch back there to that back pocket. I'll let it drop in that back pocket. I'll let it sink all the way to the bottom, pull it up a few times, and then I'll pull it out the water and let it fall in the next pocket. Pull it out, let it fall in the next pocket. And I'll just keep doing that until I get to the edge of the cover. Now that's what I like to do when I'm trying to find out if those fish are near the edge of the cover or if they're back up in the thick stuff. And eventually you'll detect a pattern. You'll find out they're within the first foot of the covers where you're getting the bites, or either they're way back up in the thick stuff. And then you can really hone in on which area that you're trying to get that bait in, you're trying to flip. Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. All right, finally got one flipping. Stay down now. Stay down now. Stay down now. Woo! I threw it up there in that cover. I let it fall down in the cover, and then I pulled it out the cover. It hit the bottom. I went to pull it up, and I see him come up and flash and grab it. Boom. Oh, we got everything wet. Bye. Well, it could have been a 10-pounder. Anyone you catch flipping could be a 10-pounder. Most of the time when you hook one flipping in that cover like that, it's a good one.